Do you think it necessarily follows that if you have done a really great job at decluttering your home and your belongings, that your life is simple? You might be interested in decluttering, but you're still asking yourself the question, which I have really been asking myself a lot lately. What is a simple life, and what do I mean by that? I changed the channel to the name Towards a Simple Life in December. What do I mean by that? If you're interested in these topics, you have found the right place, because we're going to be talking a lot about slowing down, living a simpler life, decluttering, all those things that tie together. So I hope you subscribe. I really have been seriously asking questions about what a simple life is. So I went out and researched to see what other people had to say about it. The easiest answers that come along come from minimalists, and I mean strict minimalists, the ones that have capsule wardrobes, they don't have very many belongings, they don't keep duplicates, and they will say being a minimalist and not having much makes you have a simple life. Well, I would agree that your life would be simpler because it is simpler to maintain fewer items than more items, but I don't think having fewer items necessarily makes your life simple. I also saw a lot of people out there saying that the only way you can have a simple life is if you sell what you belong, you move from the city or the suburbs to a rural area where you can grow a lot of food, you have animals, you may dress in more simple ways, you might make all your clothes, you make all of your food, it might be organic, you might even buy a small home or a cabin and remodel it, and therefore your life is simple, and in order to have a simple life you need to do that. Well, as someone who grew up in a rural area, I can tell you that that doesn't necessarily work together. It might be a really wonderful experience for you to do that, but it might be a terrible experience. I have personally seen people do that and move into the small rural area where I grew up with this idea of some idyllic life when they moved in, only to find out rather quickly that they didn't like that at all and they moved back to where they came from. My grandfather was a farmer, and I can tell you that in some ways his life was simple because he knew what his goals were, but in other ways, at some times in particular, his life was anything but simple. So I don't think that having a simple life is locational. Another thought is that you can't work hard at a job in order to have a simple life. Maybe you go and you just do what you have to. You certainly would never have a part-time job. And your goal would be, I'm going to reduce my hours so I can work as little as possible. Maybe I'm going to save a lot of money so I can retire early, and then my life will be simpler. Well, I think, for one thing, I think the idea that you can't live a simple, happy life till you retire is unfortunate. I think it would be better for us to enjoy our life today. I also don't agree with this idea that in order to live a simple life, you're not working very much or you're not committed when you're there. I have had to work most of my life. It is only getting ill that forced me into early retirement. But my life is still very busy. So most of my life I've been working, but I've had periods of my life where my life felt far simpler than others, and it had to do with the choices I was making, not how much I had to do. When I was forced in retirement because I got long COVID, my life still felt extremely complicated. And then I started to ask myself these questions. And why, you would imagine that if you're retired, you'd be happier, but I wasn't. I didn't have enough moments of happiness. Another problem with that idea is that there are a lot of people out there, found the most interesting subreddit called Simple Living. You see regular questions from people who say, how can I live a simple life? I don't make enough money. A simple life is only for people who are rich or privileged. Well, some of my happiest, most simple life came at times when we were struggling just to keep a roof over our head, to feed our family, to clothe our family. And I became hyper-focused on how I was going to do that in a way that my family didn't feel deprived. And I was able to do it. And I had to slow down and kind of simplify. And it was a very nice part of my life. So I don't agree with the idea that you can't have a simple, enjoyable life if you don't have a lot of money. On the other side of that, there are people who say that the only way you can have a simple life is if you are extremely frugal, that you don't spend any money at all. Well, I think that probably ties into this idea that you don't have a lot of belongings, which makes sense. Or maybe they're saving up so that they can retire and have more free time, which I can see. The problem is then they'll become really critical of other people and say, you can't have a simple life because you're spending too much money. You see where I'm going with this? There's so many people that have so many different ideas on what a simple life is. On Reddit, I heard some wonderful true wisdom about a simple life, which kind of went with what my gut was. I'd like to read you some of what these people said. This person said, people who see a simple life as a destination, not a state of mind. No set of removing things from your life or anything else is going to give you a simple life. It's being happy with where you are, with what you have. It's joy in the simple things, like the first sip of coffee out of your favorite mug, watching the world wake up from winter, playing board games with friends. And someone else said, for me, simple living is the mindset of living in a way that brings small joys on the regular, just through everyday living. Once some ideas of simple living has some kind of API attached to it, it becomes about self-improvement or chasing a goal. It's not actually simple. For me, simple living is about letting go of the need for achievement and external validation through needing to live or aspire to a certain type of lifestyle. Someone else said, people think taking the easy way is simple living. Like simple living is a lazy life. There's confusion about that, thinking that simple equal easy. I really like what this person said. They said, I think it's better to view simple living as being on a spectrum. And so one person's idea and practice of simple living won't necessarily be shared by another person. I think the better question to ask is, what does simple living look like to you? So as I've been thinking about it, I have realized that yes, in order for me to have a simple life, I need to declutter. I just have too many belongings, and the progress I have been making has been very encouraging, and it's helped me see that there is value into reducing what I have down to a more comfortable level for me. I won't ever be a minimalist. I've said that before, but it will get down to a level where I feel comfortable and I also don't feel concerned for what will happen to my kids when I die, that they'll have too much to take care of. Also, a simple living for me is to declutter my time, to open more time to do the type of things that I enjoy doing, that make me feel fulfilled, that give me a feeling of contentment. And I have rediscovered how much I love baking. I have started with sourdough baking and have found out it's not only better for my stomach, which has been a surprise, but I'm just really enjoying trying all the different things I can do with sourdough starter. It's been a lot of fun. And cooking and reading, I'm back into reading books, both novels and nonfiction, playing the piano, doing puzzles, talking to my children and my grandchildren and taking walks, enjoying going up and picking up my granddaughter from the bus, spending time just hanging out with my husband, just driving around. But those things take time. So I had to break open the time. I started to realizing what happened when my life really started to feel more complicated. I had more access to more information that I needed. It started in '95 when we got our first computer, but it still wasn't out of control until these came along, because then you could take the outside world with you everywhere you went. And you just can sit and scroll and scroll and scroll and read and consume. And of course, social media took it even further. And then streaming. I mean, you can just, it used to be that you'd have 3, maybe 4 channels. So you would watch television when there was something interesting on, and other times you weren't watching. And then when my kids were smaller, for us to watch a movie, we'd have to rent a VCR and get a VCR tape. You remember those? It actually cost quite a bit of money to do that. And having one, oh my goodness, to buy a VCR was around $700 or $800, which in today's, oh, I can't even imagine how much that would be today. So we didn't spend as much time doing that thing because it just wasn't available to us. But now everything, the world is available, and it's very addictive. Maybe you haven't had that experience, but for me, I found that it's addictive, and I've become swallowed up in it. And then I have a lot of times when I truly am sick because I have some chronic illnesses. And for so long, I would just sit and watch television. That's all I felt like I could do. But then I became too dependent on it. So then when I was feeling better, I was in the habit, and I just kept doing it. So in order for me to live this kind of life that I'm longing for, I've literally had to make better choices about my time. Still watch TV, we watch YouTube. So my time is opening up, and I'm finding when I'm in my kitchen, I'm baking. I often don't even listen to any music, but sometimes I'm just in there enjoying the slowness, really getting into what I'm doing with the ingredients and the bread and the dough. And finding that my life is just getting quieter in general, which is making me feel like my life is getting simpler. I also have found that by doing that, I'm getting more concerned about my health. I'm limited into what I can do. I can never get rid of my fibromyalgia, but I can manage it better by being better about pacing, by not pushing myself too far, about eating better, by getting enough rest. Those kinds of things can help me live the best life I can having a chronic illness. So I'm becoming more aware of the things that I was doing that was making it harder for me. So that is a good thing. I also am getting more thoughtful about what I'm buying. I'm still spending money. I have tried the no spending approach. It didn't work out for me. I have a video, a shopaholic video, which I will link to. You might find it very interesting if you're trying to reduce. It tells the story of how I stopped becoming a shopaholic. I am taking more time to be quiet, to meditate, to pray, to read scriptures, to read inspirational book and nonfiction, which is also calming my soul. I'm really looking forward to spring when I can be out in the yard, because being with nature is a really good thing. And I'm looking forward to planting my flowers and working in the vegetable garden and decluttering the yard, which is something that really needs to be done. This is the way that I am simplifying my life. So we'll be talking more about these topics in the future on this channel. But for right now, I want to give you my ideas of what you can do to have your life become simpler. And today, I would highly recommend that you just start out by asking yourself some questions. Don't be critical of yourself. Just ask yourself these important questions. What is important to you? What do you value? Who are the important people in your life? And how do you want to have your relationship with them go? How much time do you want to spend with them? What type of things do you enjoy doing? And are you putting enough value on those type of things? Instead of going, I'm too busy to do these kinds of things. What does too busy mean? And are you really too busy? Or are you choosing to do things that are filling that time you could be doing with something else? How are you spending your money? Do you feel good about it? Are you just getting by? Or are there some changes that you want to make? And then, going back to the decluttering, Is decluttering something that you want to do, that you feel motivated to do, you feel it's important for you to do? And where are you in that process? Are you starting to feel content with where you are, or do you feel like you want to do more? And how do you feel? Do you feel like you want to become a minimalist and just really go for it? Or do you want to find a happy medium? I just feel it's really important to say, don't let anyone pressure you. Don't let them mandate how few or how many belongings you have. This is a real individual choice, to where I don't pressure my husband to declutter. I am just decluttering my own things. Well, I'm going to link to that Shopaholic video that I mentioned, which tells my story about how I even arrived where I am decluttering, and then gives you some tips about how I'm decluttering. And I hope I see you next time. Bye.